Now third most among current champions behind flyweight king Demetrius Johnson, who's going to be defending the title against an Elite XC veteran I remember from back in the day, Wilson Hayes. Again, poor, Demetrius Johnson, who is pound for pound, maybe the best fighter on the planet, but for some reason can't move that needle. And I think they're smart in continuing to put him on Fox TV, where you can get, you can say, hey, we're putting a title fight on Fox, and this guy is really good, and you'll get way more eyeballs than you would on pay-per-view, because Demetrius Johnson is not a pay-per-view draw.
Yeah, that's the thing. But a guy like that deserves that big money. Why not put him on a co-main with a Conor McGregor, right? Just as a favor from the UFC. It says, okay, listen, you're the pound-for-pound best guy out there. We're going to help you a little bit. We're going to put you on the co-feature. We let McGregor fight the main event. I mean, that would be great for him, because then he's get some pay-per-view money as well.
Sure. No, I agree with you. I wonder about the pride. And, of course, nowadays with there's not a lot of big money fights, so they can't even afford to do stuff like that. They need big fights everywhere, and I think that's one of the reasons why GSP is come back against Michael Bisping. This announced last week as well, where Bisping, who wanted the big money fight, and by the way, Dana White telling people, if you're not Conor McGregor, shut up and fight. He's had it with the money fights, although, again, we talked about it before we went on the air, man. Every major sport, that's why there's collective bargaining or unions or whatever, because all major sports, 50% and above of the revenues go to the athletes. UFC way below that. And yes, there's certain individuals like Conor McGregor making multi-million-dollar paydays, but not enough people are making a livable wages. We've seen a lot of fighters retiring, a lot of fighters having to do, and boss, again, I get it. It's not my money and stuff, but if you're major league, you got to be able to give them a wage that indicates that these people are special athletes, that they are different from the norm, and that they have something to aspire to. And whether it's, 8 weeks of training camp, you have to look at that as 8 weeks. Okay, for an 8-week regular job, how much you going to make? Well, these are athletes. So, I'm of the belief that just the opening fight, with how much money they've made and with the sale price of $4 billion, you got to start 20-20 now.
Yep.
20-20 minimum to get a guy to go into the octagon, if that's the highest level of competition. But GSP, who hasn't fought for over 3.5 years, did not look good in his last welterweight title defense against Johnny Hendricks. A lot of people thought Hendricks won, who's now 35 years of age. And I don't care what anybody says. Yes, tremendous athlete, unbelievable draw, one of the biggest draws in the UFC history, a major player in Canada. And after he retired, man, the numbers in Canada went down a lot. But against Michael Bisping, who is a big 185, and yeah, maybe Michael Bisping, one of the, to me, that was the story of 2016. The guy coming out of nowhere, longest tenured fighter, most wins in UFC history with 20. GSP is 19, but he goes and beats Anderson Silva. He beats Dan Henderson. He beats Luke Rockhold on short notice in a rematch. Remember, Rockhold destroyed him in the first fight, and he is the UFC middleweight champion. And he's saying, like everyone else nowadays, Yoel Romero, no. Jacare Souza, no. I want big money fights, and he's getting it.
And he should, and he's smart that he does it. And he says, Yoel Romero, 6 weeks after the GSP, I'll fight you, Because people, of course, are going to say, oh, he's afraid now. He's afraid. No, everybody looks for big money. They look at one guy, Conor McGregor, and they say, hey, wait a minute, he made like $30 million last year. If I could get 10% of that, that would be really nice.
So what do you think about, we'll break it down when it's officially announced. It still has not been officially announced, but a lot of people that I've talked to, and just even my own perspective of this is, they talk about Conor McGregor. We had a bit of an argument, you and I, not an argument, a debate that, GSP going down to 155. I think that's nuts. But I can see where, if necessary, he could do it. I think it would hurt him against Conor McGregor. But 170, we just had that. Like, Tyron Woodley's not a very popular champion despite his success. GSP's the guy who ruled the division.
Yep.
The best welterweight champion in UFC history. But, again, he's not coming back for just any fight. So I think I would have rather have seen him, I thought maybe against Anderson Silva, finally get that fight out of the way. But, again, that goes back to the size issue. GSP does not, I don't think he's big enough or should be at middleweight. There's too many. Luke Rockhold, all these guys. Yoel Romero, do you think he'd fight Romero?
That's what I'm saying. Let's say now, devil's advocate, what if he beats Bisping? Yeah. Is he going to fight Romero? That's a really dangerous fight.
And it throws the titles again in chaos. The one thing about the UFC for the longest time, the championships were pure and they were valuable and they always meant something to the pay-per-view audience. You have Conor McGregor, who's won titles at featherweight and lightweight, not defending any of these things. You have titles being held hostage, titles on the shelf because of injury or whatnot. Right now, you have Michael Bisping. Yes, I agree. Michael Bisping deserves this opportunity, and I wouldn't be too surprised because one of the GSP strengths back in the day was speed. And I wonder if he's going to be as fast now, 3 years older. Conditioning, never a problem, but it's never been a problem for Michael Bisping either.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Push.
Technically speaking, GSP is a way better fighter than Michael Bisping. We all know that. But the intangibles, my friend.
It doesn't come out sometimes. And that's what happened in his last fights that he had in the UFC 3 years ago. It didn't come out, and that's why he had such a big trouble against Conor, against Johnny Hendricks. Well, a lot of people thought Johnny Hendricks beat him there. And look at Johnny Hendricks right now. So it's a different division. It's going to be very hard for him.
GSP indicative of what happened when big money started coming to the UFC because, and it's funny, we had Sugar Ray Leonard on the broadcast. He also fought Marvin Hagler. Very contentious decision. Hagler quit the sport after that because he literally, and I thought he won the fight as well, all due respect to Sugar Ray Leonard, but Hagler left the sport. But Hagler was known for saying it's tough to get up in the morning and do road work when you're sleeping in silk sheets, meaning when you're full, your belly's full, I made my money, why do you put yourself through? GSP changed his fighting style once he started making big money.
Well, it was also after the fight against Matt Serra, right? That it went before that. It was like 12-3. I looked it up one time. You know that he had 12 finishes and only 3 decisions, and after that, it was the other way around. From the next 12 or 13 fights, whatever he had, it was only a few finishes, and the rest were all decisions, and that's why people gave him a hard time. But he's fighting the best guys on the planet, actually.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and to also go back to Maia and Masvidal, that's going to happen UFC 211 May 13th in Dallas. Maia riding a 6-fight win streak, and man, a win over a guy like Masvidal. Win anyway. The guy needs to get a title shot, but again, this is the quandary. This is the conundrum. Fans want to see entertaining fights. Fighters want to make the biggest money possible against the opponents that are going to draw that. And with all due respect to Damian Maia, who more than deserves it, not the most charismatic, doesn't really move the needle, but an amazingly talented fighter. And nor should he have to change. That's the one thing I will say is that, well, people, I always say take advantage of the time on the microphone after a win or any time you're doing media. But that doesn't mean you have to become Conor McGregor or Floyd Mayweather or Chael Sonnen. You have to turn your own personality up to 11, as we say in WWE. Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the biggest draws, one of the most successful sports entertainment stars in history. All he did was turn up his personality to 11 when he went out on stage, and that's what drew people to him. Fyodor Emelianenko, hugely popular and charismatic, but he looked like he just got out of bed most times. But there was that Mirko Krokop. There was that aura. Even yourself, boss. You look at someone, you say, okay, that guy's a badass, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you going to say that Fyodor Emelianenko is like great on the mic?
Right, no, but
he's got that,
That's what I'm saying. You need to do whatever is necessary to make yourself most valuable to the company and your career. And yes, I know even in the MMA media game, there's, so many people, it should be merit-based and rankings and who you beat. And yeah, I agree, but this is the fight business. Yep. And it's about entertainment. And that's why, even though I don't agree with GSP getting a middleweight title shot in his first fight back, never having competed in the division, especially with guys like Souza and Yoel Romero waiting in the wings, I know why they're doing it. And again, as a fan of Michael Bisping and all that he's done to the sport, I'll watch. I'll support the fight because it does intrigue me. And right now, with McGregor on the sidelines, Rousey nowhere to be found, John Jones still, serving a suspension. This is the big money fight, the first one of the year that they put together. We don't have an official date yet, but we'll wait and see what happens. Now, getting back to UFC 209 and putting a button on the proceedings, we haven't heard since we go to the press here on Monday, since we record. Nurmagomedov, we don't know about his future. I don't know if it's at 155.
$500,000, they
crazy,
said.
Man.
$500K, man.
And I don't think his future's at lightweight unless he totally overhauls and uses maybe who was the trainer of the year at those awards that I don't care about? Mike Dolce,
Mike
trainer
Dolce
of the
would be
year.
good.
Have you ever gone to one of those things?
No, because I don't have the I can eat whatever I want. I don't gain and I don't lose.
I don't care. I'm winning. Hey, I'm winning announcer of the year on the Wrestling Observer News. I don't need those kinds of awards. Just kidding. All right. Anyway, Darren Elkins, we talked talked about. Come from behind win for 50 grand against Yuri Alcantara. What about Lando Venata and David Tamer, who were involved in a slugfest? Venata, as always, he gave Tony Ferguson a run for his money on short notice before losing. But that's the thing; he lost his fight too. He's now 1-2 in the UFC, but both of them made $50,000 for fight of the night. And that's
Overeem did good.
Yeah, Alistair Overeem.
Beautiful knee, landed.
It came later than I thought, but I predicted he would knock out Mark Hunt, who, according to his Instagram, suffered an injury, broke his tibia, I believe. So he's going to be on the shelf.
And it was